Do you want to ask Ryan that question again, so for posterity?
Um, we will, yeah. So if you're just joining us and the recording is just starting, welcome to the Visions 2021 alumni panel. The question we have just asked, and we're going to pose it to one of our alums, Ryan Halsey again, is which class or which class project stands out in your mind as something that helped you develop into the professional you are today?
Sure. The class that helped me the most was probably Advanced Game Design Workshop. It was a class where the entire semester was just one big game design project where our entire team got to really like show off their own discipline. And for me, that was game programming. And it kind of helped me like figure out a workflow start to finish from planning to end product, and was just an overall really good experience with my teammates.
Great. Okay. Do any of our other alums want to jump in, or I can call on folks one by one, or I can just open it up and our alums can answer. I think, Angela, did you just unmute?
I did. Yeah, I was fine with jumping in. I was just going to answer the question and say, because I had a double concentration, classes come to mind for actually both theater and professional communications. For professional communications, I of course have to mention the National Student Advertising Competition. That actual project and working on that, I felt honestly really showed the ways of how I would actually be working on marketing plans in my future. And I also was the lead for the presentation team. So that taught me a lot about doing presentations and in like large arenas, as well as just like being prepared and working with the team, and a lot about like communication in that aspect. With theater, and it might sound funny to some people at first, but my acting 1 class really was my first introduction into acting in college. But it taught me a lot more than that. It taught me that you have to go into an assignment or a project, just put everything you have into it, because you're not going to get the maximum amount back unless you're giving everything. So I learned from acting 1, just building my confidence and being able to be on stage and be confident in that. And that helps in not just when I'm acting in my life now, but also when I'm marketing and telling stories and communicating with people. So those two stand out definitely.
Yeah, I can answer this. I mean, this goes way back for me. But I'm actually going to go back to like, I think it was the year 2000. I was in Charlie Roberts's advanced video class. And what happened was the group that I was working with, I wrote this script, and Charlie came back. He was like, "No, man, you can't do that." And I remember I was mad. Like I got real mad. The whole group of us got real mad, and we actually petitioned it and like went to the department lead. We did everything. Like Jeff, you probably remember this. Rob, you might too. And we got really, really mad. And so I just like we literally didn't do anything for 2 weeks. And so what we ended up doing was I wrote a script that was about making a bad video. And it's video possible that anybody in the communications department could ever make, and just say, you know what, here it is. And it ended up being a really good piece. And what, it actually went to festivals and all kinds of stuff. So, what I actually learned from that was, though, in my career was, it's okay to not be able to impress your client. And sometimes your client's going to say no. Doesn't mean you need to get mad like we did. We were just, we're college kids just being brats, I guess. But in the end, we turned something around so quick and made such a great product that, there is always another way to share your art. Just make sure you're always good at it. So it really has stuck with me for a number of years, and it makes a fun story.
Yeah,
I was going to share 2 different experiences. The first one is project design, which ironically I'm now the client for, but the reason I liked the class originally is because of that client connection. It was the first time that I was able to actually like do work for a quote unquote real client, someone who would be in front of us and like watch us present. And I led the kind of group activity for our group. And it was, I think it was Angela who was saying, like, it was a test of just how to get everything done. I had never worked in a group project this big, this kind of consequential, because a whole other person that's not your professor is going to be viewing it. They don't know you, they don't really care, they're just looking at the product. And ironically, that's what I do every single day now. So that was a really good primer. I didn't know, more than a decade ago, that would be that. The other one is actually document design. It was a class where I had never ever in my life opened Adobe anything other than, to look at PDFs. And I was basically forced to, and I mean, literally forced. Rob did not give me an option. He's like, you have to take the class and you have to do a design. Like, you have to. And I cried. Very similar to you, Randy. I like protested, didn't work. So I ended up pulling a really talented illustrator, graphic designer, to just teach me the basics. I think it was InDesign. And that was probably 11 years ago. And from that day, I created the logo for the Black Student Union at the time. And I saw my logo on t-shirts, hats, all over the place, flyers, and it just kind of sparked this thing in me. And I just started spending time behind my computer on InDesign, hours in the lab doing design work. And I fell in love with it. It's the thing that I was like so fearful of and so terrified of. And if I wasn't pushed to do that in this program, because I am a writer, if I wasn't pushed to do that, my career, I know I wouldn't be where I am right now. And so those two classes together have just kind of really changed my life.
I guess my class, well, so in high school, I was in the photography club and I loved photographing people. And so when I got to Fitchburg and we got to do modeling classes and it was a lot of fun, I was kind of dreading doing product photography just because it seemed a bit boring to me. And I ended up really loving it. And every job I've had, I've been a product photographer. So, I mean, it really just like kind of opened my mind into being able to like architecturally lay out the products that you need to be photographing and capturing, whether it be for packaging or even just like online or banners. I just love to like architecturally lay out things. So without that class, I definitely wouldn't be a product photographer today. And then I think another photography class that really like changed how I thought about things was large format. That was like my first dipping my toes into something new, and it was very frustrating because I just was not good at it. So it was nice to like really challenge myself, and like I think without that class, I don't know, I had never been challenged like that before in a class, and it was just pretty eye-opening to just have to really think differently about how you like do things. And I think that obviously really set me up for pretty good things later on.
That's great, thank you. So the follow-up question to this is there a class that you wish you had taken? Is there something that you didn't get the chance to take, or something that you might be doing now that you might have at some point have said, hey, I really wish I had gotten a chance to take this class? Carolee, I saw you nodding. I might call on you first.
Yeah, it's like anything with graphic design. I feel like I had to, at the time, lynda.com, YouTube wasn't really super big then what it is now. You could literally do a whole 4 years course on YouTube, but lynda.com really taught me a lot. I wish that I had the opportunity to take some courses in graphic design while I was at Fitchburg State. But yeah.
I'm just going to piggyback off of that because as somebody that really enjoys writing, I do to this day, and I did back then. I think I didn't necessarily consider graphic design classes aiding me in my career that I have now. Definitely would have. I did a lot of self-teaching down the line just because, you know, it is something that, of course, you're going to do in marketing. So that was just something that I wish I had done as well. Same as Carolee.
Yeah, I think for me.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
Are you sure?
I'll go first. I'll get you after. Yeah.
I wish I took graphic design classes at Fitchburg as well, because photography and graphic design, I think, go hand in hand. And I think I would have been able to start a career earlier as a graphic designer, having taken even just double majoring is something I really wish that I had done.
I do not wish I took graphic design classes, but although we did a lot of graphic design in our video work. But you know, for me, I kind of wish that there was some sort of entrepreneurship track, especially when we're in school. You know, some of the guys that I still talk with today, we wish the same. I mean, it's such a rabbit hole, we'll say, of holy crap once you get out in the world trying to just, you know, figure out how to get that first gig if you're on your own. You know, it would have been valuable information to have going out into the world. I mean, technically speaking, I felt like I was sound coming out of Fitchburg. I mean, we had rough equipment, so we learned all the stuff the hard way to do things. You know, we were always thinking outside the box. We could do all that. But when it came down to like managing a business or like creating marketing, those are all things that I learned along the way, and wished I had some education in that before I left school.
I think it's just me now.
Yep, just you.
I wish I had taken more advanced computer science courses, because like I said, I used to work on the actual like game for my studio, but now I don't. And when that switch happened, a lot of the information that like I had known was no longer useful. And I had some idea of like computer science fundamentals, but it definitely could have been stronger, and that would have like helped that transition be a lot smoother. So I just wish I had taken more classes that would have built on that.
Great. Okay. Very, very useful. Like I said, we're in the middle of registration right now, so hope maybe this is sparking some ideas for some of our students. I do also want to talk a little bit, since Brandy, you brought up entrepreneurship. I do actually want to talk about a couple of different things, and I'm going to pose this question to Ryan and to Angela first, as our most recent grads. I want to ask them about how they found their first job, and then I'm going to circle back around to our other alums and I want to talk about freelancing. I want to talk about starting your own business and those kinds of things. But to Ryan and to Angela, since you are our most recent alums on the panel today, can you talk to us a little bit about how you made that transition from game studio, from internship? How did you go about finding your first job?
You can go first, Angela.
Okay. So my first job wasn't in marketing at all, actually, just because I had this wonderful internship at the Fourth Wall Stage Company, but I was reached out to by a recruiter on my LinkedIn, and it was to actually be a fulfillment specialist for a company called Barton Associates. I do credit that job with a lot of just being able to stay calm in high pressure situations and being able to appease customers and clients and things of that nature. I talked on the phone pretty much all day. It was while I was at that job that I had a realization that while I was doing this and maybe I was good at it, it wasn't what I was passionate about. And I really realized how strongly I felt about doing something that I was passionate about. And that kind of brought me to leading to my search to graduate school, largely due to Kelly Morgan bringing it up and bringing up IRTAs. But I really had to go to graduate school, kind of have my path there. And then I got my first professional job about a year ago, being a marketing manager at a performing arts center at a college called Baruch in Manhattan. So that kind of led me all there. But I would definitely credit being able to go to graduate school as my personal journey for being able to get to that position.
For me, it was a bit of happy coincidence that I had a friend whose dad was the engineering director at Warner Brother Games Boston, and he knew that I was part of the game design program at Fitchburg State, and asked if I was looking for an internship opportunity. So of course I said, yeah, I am. And then he was able to recommend me to the HR department, get me an interview for the internship. And then once those 9 months were up, they hired me on as a project temp, which is where I am currently. So it was just a lot of luck, and then my technical skills and interview skills to back up that luck and take it into an actual job.
Okay. And it sounds like some networking too, which that's coming up as one of my questions in a little bit. But for our other alums, so Elise, Carolee, and Brandy, could you talk to us? You've all worked as freelancers. Could you talk to us a little bit about life as a freelancer? And then as a follow-up question, I want to ask about starting your own business. So what's can you tell us a little bit about the freelance work that you've done, and some of the challenges, but also some of the benefits of working freelance?
Sure, I can go first if you want. Oh, did I cut you off, Elise? I'm sorry.
No, I went first last time, so
I mean,
you're
we can go at
good.
the same time if you want. No, so as far as freelance work for me, honestly, for me, it all started. I had a kid, and I was working in the corporate world at a TV studio for senior citizens. And I decided that I wanted to do more on my own. So the first thing I did was actually move out to LA with a 6-month-old at home. That's a whole nother story. And being a freelancer in LA, I can talk towards that too. I mean, it does help with who you know, but not really. For me, it helped as far as where I could stay. I stayed with a ton of Fitchburg State people I didn't even know. Took me in for a few days on the couch. But my first job out there, I actually lied my way into, to be totally honest. I had 42 different resumes because I was older though. I was 31 trying to get a gig in LA. So I finally got a call through, and they asked me if I spoke with the line producer, and I said, yeah. They said, great, you're hired Wednesday. I didn't even know who the line producer was. But that's just how it goes. But after that, I moved back to Massachusetts, and I decided I wanted to start my own business. And really, I started with a daycare, and I just started bartering. I was like, how many months free can I get if I take photos for you, redesign your website, and do video for you? Because there's all stuff I figured out along the way, and do graphic design for you because I knew how to do graphic design. So I did all of that, and I ended up getting 8 months free of childcare, and then from there I just kept piling on top. I used that as my portfolio, and I kept moving forward. And eventually, I got to this place where I was only producing for women business owners, and I was only producing for nonprofits. And then I started speaking for 2 years about video marketing all over the country, and I ended up on the stage of the National Association of Women Business Owners, and that's really what piqued the interest of the real estate coach here in Tennessee. We had met each other along the way, and she was like, "Hey, you're working with women. You helped Coal." That's something else that happened. I helped Coal Banker create their video department as well. You helped Coal Banker create their video department. You want to merge? So for me, it was really networking, using what I've done in the past to just keep building myself into this person that could work really well with certain audiences, and then really just capitalizing on that, and just keep presenting myself in ways that people really can't say no.
My first job was a freelance gig for a website called planetshoes.com. And so I was hired as a freelance photographer, and it was kind of more just pop and shoot images. And so we would just set up the shoes and just photograph like 6 different angles for the website. And then I was a part of a team of like maybe 3 other freelance photographers. And we ended up getting a lot more work, and we ended up recreating and rebranding the website through photography and doing a lot more lifestyles and working with people and having models come in. And I liked freelancing because I could work on my time. I would kind of come in really early and leave earlier. I didn't have to work a traditional 9 to 5, which is nice. And also you can take time off when you need to take time off. But for me, it wasn't my favorite. So I did end up advocating for myself to be hired full time. So after a year, 2 years of freelancing, I was hired full time at Planet Shoes. But yeah, so freelancing, not my fave, but so I've had full-time 9 to 5s since then, but yeah.
And can you talk oh, sorry. Go ahead, Carolee. And then I'm going to circle back to some of the challenges of freelancing. But yeah, Carolee, go ahead.
So freelancing and business, like being a business owner, are 2 very different things in my mind. So starting out at freelancing, it's kind of just doing whatever my friends wanted, whether it's like birthday celebration flyers. I'm getting married, do my invitations for me. I'm having my first kid. Like that's kind of how that stuff started, and then eventually it kind of melted into my day jobs, where they found out, oh, you can do this, of course. Well, now you do all that stuff. And until it ended up where there was one organization that I left to go for a kind of upward movement into management elsewhere. And I knew they didn't have a graphic designer on staff. I knew that they would have to hire someone. They've already seen my work because I was doing it for them. So I pitched them as like my first kind of bigger freelance client. And they said yes. So I ended up having, my regular 9 to 5 job and them as a client. And similar to what Brandy said, I used that to flip and get other clients of that size. And I was just doing that for a few years, flipping that into a full-time situation. To at least this point, you do get to kind of choose somewhat your schedule. It's not this 9 to 5, but it's absolutely not, I think, what people might think, this idea of like, oh, you get up whenever you want. And you no, I was up at like 7 this morning and I've been in meetings and presentations, and I have clients calling me and asking me when proposals, are going to be sent back. And I have to kind of juggle multiple people because I have people on my team, and then I have other consultants that I work with. So it's a lot. So freelancing, I think, is an awesome opportunity if you have a 9 to 5. If you're going to graduate and search for a 9 to 5, look for freelance work. It's an awesome way to kind of add extra things to your bank account. But running your own business, it's a whole other level of things to kind of think about. And if we're going to talk about that later, I'd be happy. I'm sure Brandy has, wealth of knowledge in that area as well, to just kind of differentiate the two, because definitely very different in my mind.
So let's, I do want to talk about this, running your own business, but in terms of like your life as a freelancer, like for students that are thinking about this as a career choice, that they want to go out and freelance, we've talked about some of the benefits in terms of, your own schedule. What are some of the challenges or things that you wish you had known or maybe understood a little bit more deeply before you jumped into freelancing? Especially maybe like juggling multiple clients, because Carolee, you kind of alluded to that.
I mean, I know I just talked, so I just continue because I think everyone's thinking. It's who you know. And if you're going to freelance full time, you have to consistently or continuously network, because it is literally who you know, and you're going to live and kind of eat by that. And so being good to people, making connections, not just for the next job, but for actual relationship building. I've had people circle back years later and suggest other people to me. It's who you know, which is like life, but definitely a bigger thing in freelance.
Yeah, I would say, at some point in time, you got to be able to let go. As I've gotten older, I've honestly just I don't like to be on set that much anymore. I don't really like to edit that much anymore. To be quite honest, I'd rather just manage everything. And at some point in time, you pay attention to what your style is and pay attention to how you can help train people to edit in your style or to shoot in your style and still give them the creative freedom to work with you. And that's something I say work with, never, especially in art, I will never say you work for me, because we absolutely always have to work together in these creative fields, because everyone has a different vision, but in the end, the messaging is the most important piece, especially in my world. But as far as being a freelancer, that was challenging, letting go at first, but it's awesome on the other side. Sure, there's challenges of managing, like my editor, him and his wife just had a baby. I'm not gonna lie, I've been screwed for the last 2 months. I was up at 3 a.m. editing. I just told you I don't like to edit. So I mean, that's just what it is. That's what happens though when you start managing teams. It's you take responsibility for everything, and that is the definite difference. I think Carolee was saying that, versus freelance versus business owner. I'm definitely at that area of being a business owner. I really don't like working in my business. I like working on my business. You'll hear a lot of people say that, but at work towards working on your business and not in your business. I know that's hard as an artist. You always want to work in it, but at some point in time, if you really want to make it, you got to let go.
All right. So Carolee, I know that you have more to say on this, so I'm going to turn it over to you. So talk to us about your about your business and what it's like to be an entrepreneur.
Oh, I mean, sure. um, well, I always, I'm a baby entrepreneur. I just started over the last year, but I couldn't agree more with Brandy. I think one of the biggest things I'm learning is there's two things that he covered. It's the idea of, how you best work, not only the style, but your level of production. And it's essential to find people that you can train to not only kind of work in that style, but work at that level so that you can step away a little bit. Because as a business owner, it's more beneficial, at least in my mind, it's more beneficial for me to be out, closing leads, meeting new people, again, expanding that network. And then I can bring new clients in and kind of divvy up the work with the team of people that I have. And that is very different from freelance, where you're kind of just like, you're the receptacle, you're getting all the work from all these people. Whereas my goal, versus, again, echoing what Brandy said, is to run my business, not necessarily kind of be in it. I enjoy graphic design. I enjoy writing. Do I want to do that instead of like going out and meeting new people and potentially getting more money? Nope. Where I'm at. I've done it for 10 years. I feel like I've paid enough of those dues. But yeah, running your business, I think moving in from a freelance to a business mindset, I think that's the biggest thing that I've just learned is you're gonna have to let go, but there's a way to do that to set yourself up for success. And a part of that is building out a team that you can actually trust to do the work when you're kind of like, hands off.
If I can, I'm actually a mentor for a group out of Chicago. It's a national group. It's called Self-Employment in the Arts, and it's mostly college students. Every year we do a conference. It's 450 students from around the country, all artists who come together, and there's about 50 business owners who come out, and we help people who want to start their own businesses in the arts. We help train them. And it's something that goes on year round. So it's something that you can join for free. It's Self-Employment in the Arts.
That's great. Thank you. And maybe we can post a link to that. I don't know if you have a link that maybe you could share in the chat. That would be perfect. Thank you. One of the things that's come up just, in the last couple of questions here has to do with networking. So networking is always important. I think everybody knows that networking is important and it's necessary. Do you have any tips for students, especially recent grads, starting their professional network, maintaining their professional network? There's always a little bit of, sometimes there's networking can feel intimidating or can feel a little awkward. How have all of you kind of navigated establishing your own professional network?
Yeah, I can talk. I used to come back every year to Fitchburg and talk about this. So I can talk about this a little bit. Pretty much when I was first starting out, I made a commitment to network at least 2 times a week. I go on meetup.com and find things, Eventbrite and find some things. If you're out in LA, there's stuff happening all the friggin' time. But what I would tell you is don't go to networking to make a best friend. Like you might be nervous when you get there. Don't go there and just stick with people. Go there and have a goal. Have a goal to get like 5 business cards, or have a goal to get 10 business cards. And the other piece of that is to actually follow up and talk to the people that you meet. Because a lot of the times they don't remember you. I'll be honest, I don't even carry business cards anymore. I literally go to events, and if I actually want to talk to someone, I text them right away and make sure that we have a conversation after that. But set goals. It's really uncomfortable to do it. And when you're in those conversations, start out with something simple like small talk, like, where are you from? Or what do you think of tonight's event? Or anything like that. And just make a quick connection, and then tell them, why you're there that evening or that day, and say, hey, would it be cool if we have a conversation outside of here? And then keep moving. That would be my biggest advice. Keep moving at networking events.
Yeah, when I was in grad school, we had a number of networking events that we did for the Brooklyn College alumni. And I remember for the class, like when I was a first year, it was always like, going around in a circle and like say like a fun fact about yourself, and then kind of just, you're on your own. But I think it is really important, like Brandy was saying, that like, you kind of acknowledge the awkwardness of it, but then you kind of like have a goal, and the type of people. Like I knew I was looking for like marketing professionals in the not-for-profit organization realm. And when I'm looking for something specific, even if you're talking to somebody and they're not that person, they probably know that person, or they probably like have talked to somebody that can connect you with that person. And if you are just like making sure that you're being yourself, no one's asking you to be the loudest person in the room if that's not normally you. But if you are yourself and you're just kind of going in with a goal and making sure that you follow up, of course, and like having a coffee date, or having, I guess now there would be a lot of Zoom connections, but it's always worth doing. And even when I would intern at places in grad school, I made sure to reach out to the people, whether I wanted their job in the future or not. I just wanted to hear their expertise and what they had to offer. So I advise doing that for sure.
Can I add one thing real quick? Just to piggyback on what Angela said, even if you want their jobs or not, yeah, ego stroking works great for like the older people there. I'm just saying, like, don't stroke my ego because I don't like it, but ego stroking usually works though. Like if you're like, I really love what you do. Can you really talk to me about this, even if you don't care? People have been around for a bit, like that kind of stuff. They'll talk about it all day long.
one small thing that I forgot to add, because this is about like making new connections, but remember your old ones. Remember, I mean, like we're all here and we're all able to see each other right now. And, you know, your professors that you have, definitely reach out to them and don't be afraid to keep in contact, because you never know. I mean, we just had this pandemic, and I personally, I found myself out of work for a bit, but you just want to make sure that you're keeping your old connections and continuing to make new ones. That's all.
I'm gonna plus one piggyback off of things that Brandy and Angela both just said. If you have like an internship or even like a temporary job, connecting with the people that are there is great, because odds are they also have connections that then they can help you with. A lot of these people, the professionals, are willing to help you and learn. Like Brandy said, ego stroking, they like to talk and prove that they know what they're talking about, especially like computer scientists, engineers. They love it. They won't stop. And even professors, like Angela said, I know I think it was Les helped me get like a 3-month job at Tricky Fast that I did in between my internship and graduating. So just anywhere and everywhere is an opportunity.
The one thing I'll say is networking is not just about what you can get from that person. I find that if you are actually trying to be a server, if you're trying to give and offer, as your network is building, you're going to be able to kind of offer information, guidance, other connections to people. And so show your worth is like, that's the biggest thing for me, because again, people, once you've helped them now, I don't say this to their face, but it's kind of like, I come back to you. And like, it's a more warmer conversation of like, hey, I'm now in, the need for this thing. And they're going to be like, oh yeah, you helped me with this thing, or you connected me with this person that got me this, this thing. So it's about being helpful as well and finding ways to help people, so that it's kind of a reciprocity happening there, that you're not this kind of vulture. Because I do think there are those people that kind of go to networking events just to kind of get stuff from people, and you don't want to be that person. The second thing that I will say is every aspect of my life, whether it's from Fitchburg State, I kept in touch with Rob for years. We would have like yearly coffees for a while, just to check in. Randy Howe wrote my recommendation for my master's program. And from there, every job that I've ever had, my first job out of college, that boss and my supervisor has written for a recommendation for every job that I've ever gotten over 10 years after that. It is like keeping your contacts. I can't tell you how important that will be in your life, and making sure that you're just checking in. There are people, former bosses of mine, former coworkers that I just send, Christmas or holiday cards to, a random kind of, hey, how are you doing? So networking is not just like going to an event and like, hey, how are you, whatever, but just really genuinely building those relationships, because then you can go back and kind of press on them if need be, in the future. So that's my addition.
Yeah, the only thing I would add, because I feel like I don't want to repeat everything everyone just said, but just reiterating, like keeping your connections close, because when I was at my first job, after working there for 3.5 years, the company ended up closing its doors and had to let everyone go. So like being out of a job for 6 months was difficult, but it was much easier. And I did get interviews because I reached out to people who I had worked at my internship with. I mean, nothing ended up happening for me through those interviews, and I ended up getting a different job. But like without those connections, I wouldn't have had those interviews.
All right, thank you. This is really, I think, excellent advice. So the next question, I want to ask one more question to our alums, and then I think I'm going to open it up to the audience and give others a chance to ask questions. But so my last question for all of you is that working in any type of media related field means that it's always changing. There are technological changes, platform changes. It's always changing. So my question for you guys is, how do you stay on top of those changes? How do you keep up? And what kinds of things do you read? What kinds of websites or blogs do you follow? Like, what kind of Twitter feeds are you paying attention to? So how do you stay current, and what kinds of things do you do, just even on a day-to-day basis, to make sure that you are staying current in the field?
I can talk about this. So this is actually super relevant because the tech stack I currently work with is pretty new. It's called Blazor. It's a web dev framework that uses a different programming language than is conventional. And to keep up with that, I follow a lot of like Microsoft's posts. They update about where they're at, their roadmap. So that's where I get information regarding to that. And I also follow like Unity, which is the game engine that the game design program and the studio I work at both use. They post updates. Reddit is surprisingly useful for getting like updates and how people feel, like how communities feel about things. It's very informal and opinionated, so it needs to be taken with a grain of salt, but I'll usually find subreddits for different technologies to get that kind of stuff.
One of the services that we offer is social listening to our clients. And really what that is just following the conversation for your industry around the web. So whether that's Twitter, like you said, Professor Baker, or for me, I really enjoy signing up to other marketers and their newsletters and such. Because one, they're my competition, so I want to see what they're doing. But two, they might, know new things that are happening that I'm not quite aware of. I also like to follow companies like HubSpot. I know that they're going to be kind of at the cutting edge and trying to kind of get ahead of some of the trends that are coming out. And they do really great kind of comprehensive breakdowns of new ways of kind of going about specifically even content marketing, which is kind of where my company finds our sweet spot. So I would say just kind of following the leaders in that industry for me, or in whatever I'm trying to be interested in. Like right now, I hated Canva for like 4 years, and now I'm realizing I have to just embrace it. Okay. And in order to learn more about that, like I've been on Instagram and kind of following all of these like influencers who are talking. Bria loves Canva. I know. I'm getting there. Just kind of learning as much as I can about that. So really it's a mixture of following people who are kind of doing similar work, seeing kind of how they're functioning and what they're using, what kind of tools are coming out, as well as looking at what new kind of either automation tool, et cetera, and just testing those things out on my own. YouTube is a huge resource for me, slightly addicted, but that's it.
A tool that I've used for a bit, that it's digital marketing for arts marketers by arts marketers. It's called Capacity Interactive. And especially during, I want to say like this past year, there were a lot of just like different like Zoom meetings and different like networking events that they would hold. And I would always just be attending those when I could, because I felt that it was helpful to have people talking about their challenges and kind of sharing that with you, as well as just kind of opening up the floor and giving their email as well if they had any sort of like knowledge in an area that you didn't have knowledge in yourself. My cat is meowing right next to us. I apologize for that. But I just wanted to also add that this is a little specific to my field, but Broadway briefing, I felt that I really needed to be as knowledgeable as possible, just everything that was happening in theater, especially since in the performing arts, I mean, you talked about how things are always changing in technology, but also like everything just became so different with the pandemic in a lot of ways, especially for performing arts. So I really made sure to subscribe to Broadway briefing and just make sure that I was on top of that news that was being offered. So those are my two that I always go to. And YouTube, like Carolee said, it's free. I mean, why not go on and get that free knowledge? So.
Yeah, for me, I just set up Google Alerts, and I also do YouTube. And then everything else is very industry specific for me. But it's mostly YouTube for me.
I would say it's also mostly YouTube for me as well. I watch a lot of tutorials. I watch a lot of like product reviews. I just had to revamp some of the like photography equipment that I had to buy updated photography equipment for my company, and I spent a lot of hours on YouTube trying to figure out what just like everyone liked the best. So, and honestly went with what they told me to buy. So
Actually, I'm going to add one more too. I rely on people on my team. I got some like gear nerds who work with me, which is awesome. I've always been more the managing type, anyhow, even in college. So like I rely on some of the younger folks who work with me to just stay up to date because they're way better at setting up feeds for themselves and all that. And so I just ask them, and then they tell me what to look at. So it kind of works out. So always keep that person close to you or those people.
Great. Okay. I think that's great advice. So I'm going to open it up to our audience. Does anybody have any questions for our alums? And you can either unmute or you can put it in the chat. And Rob, I saw a hand up, so you get to go first.
Thank you. So this has been absolutely wonderful. First of all, thanks to all of you for sharing so much about the past and the present. I'm curious, we haven't really talked about the future yet today. And I'm curious about where each of you now plan to go. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? And what do you see yourself as doing, including something that you don't do now? And maybe knowing something that you don't know now. Where's this going? You're all on a great career trajectory. Where are you moving? And what is so funny, Brandy? Does this take you back to one of our graduate seminars?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe. I'm getting flashbacks to grad school, man.
I apologize for that.
No. For me, I'm going to grow with the person and the team that I'm working with down here. I mean, she's on fire right now. She is growing, and video is going to become bigger and bigger in her marketing plans. I will become a manager of a media department for her. And with that being said, though, I actually do believe that I'll probably step away from some of that full-time capacity that I'm doing now. And for me, I'm going to look for ways to get more in the outdoors and actually spend some time not working as hard as I have been, and really rely on my team to do some great things for me like they already are doing. And so I'm really going to look to expand my team in the nonprofit world, and then really look to just manage some of the systems that I'm building here in Tennessee right now.
Great, thank you.
A goal and dream of mine would definitely be to be a marketing director at a not-for-profit theater. I really felt when I was living in New York City a year ago, I thought this is my place, and this is my place where I'm going to have growth. And while I am back in Massachusetts and I'm very excited to be a part of my organization for like the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, I definitely do have aspirations to go back to New York, and I just want to learn as much as I can in the role that I'm in right now. I kind of mentioned the graphic design. I feel like we're all aware of our strengths and weaknesses, and I just have always felt like writing is a strength for me. And with the design, it's just that I don't have as much experience, so I'm really trying to gain as much as possible. But yeah, that's the goal and dream is to be back in the Big Apple and being able to be a director of marketing.
That's great. That's awesome.
Thank you.
I guess I'll go. I definitely want to see this business grow exponentially to where I won't have virtual assistants. I'll actually have like full-time people on my team where I can be able to like back away from the day-to-day operations a bit. Eventually, I want to have kind of two arms of this. I got my master's in African American Studies. I'm or I was when I was in Massachusetts, super involved in like civic engagement. And so I really want to kind of focus on possibly doing a impact marketing arm. So working with advocacy groups, working with nonprofits that are geared toward different kind of civic minded endeavors, and helping them kind of move whatever their agendas are forward. I think I'm going to stick with the small business. That's kind of what I feel is been the biggest part of my business so far. And it's something I'm super interested to kind of grow in, but eventually getting to that place of kind of the passion projects for me. Hopefully I'll get there in 5 years. Who knows? But that's the goal.
Thank you.
I just started with my company doing more lifestyle imagery now that things are kind of getting back to normal. We had our first like photo shoot with people in it in over a year. And so we've been kind of just like living off a backlog for the past year. But yeah, we had our first photo shoot and I was the lead photographer. And so kind of dipping my toes back into photographing people rather than just like only photographing product. So I'd like to grow as a photographer instead of just having like a main product photography like job, and being able to even try and do like little like small videos from shoots that we do. Yeah, I'd just like to be able to be a jack of all trades, because whatever job you're in, you're going to need to do things that like you aren't like very traditionally trained in. You're going to have to be able to put on a hat of being a copywriter sometimes and put on a hat of being an illustrator, even if you don't feel very comfortable doing that. So I'd just like to continue pushing myself to be better.
Thank you.
I'm in a similar boat with Elise, where I just want to continuously push myself to be better. I'm taking online courses in AWS, which is Amazon's like web services program. I just recently got a cloud practitioner, and I'm working towards a solutions architect. And I plan on staying with the company I'm at. They actually are just we're in the process of getting me a promotion. So I currently have plans to stay with them for a while yet, potentially definitely within the next 5 years. So
That's great.
growing my skills with them.
Thank you.
Are there other questions from the audience? Kelly, yep, I saw your hand up.
For some of you, you were here, and I don't think we had the course that I've been teaching for a while, which is Artist as Business, and it focused on a lot of the transition it focuses on a lot of transition from being a student into life, doing everything from your wills and your taxes and things of that nature, and healthcare proxies, elevator pitch, how do you make a pitch to somebody like you were talking about going out. And I'm wondering, as now some of you are entrepreneurs and you have your jobs, you talked about an entrepreneurial class. Is something along the lines of this in terms of what I now offer, because I want to always keep it updated, fresh, current for the students. Is that something that you feel you wish you would have had, or if you had it, did it serve you?
Yeah, man, that's exactly what I was talking about. Yeah, that would have been cool.
Yeah, I would echo that. I think I think it was Elise who said she wants to be a jack of all trades. I've actually been calling myself the Jill of all trades for a few years. And in a traditional job, that's seen as a liability sometimes. One, because they overwork you because you can do all of these different things. But also two, then you feel pigeonholed into this one job when you can and you want to do all these different things. In entrepreneurship, there's this freedom to kind of build what you want, right? And if I knew that that was a thing, or that I could actually push for that earlier, I wouldn't have felt like such a weirdo for, I don't know, a decade. I think having that class and then maybe talking about the business side of things, ironically enough, I was an English major, and it was the business side of writing and kind of literature that got me to move because the professor was like, "You're not going to make any money." It's like, that's not what I'm. So that was a joke, but in all seriousness, I think that there could be more emphasis on kind of the business end of things. I think once I got smacked in the face with the world, realizing that there's just so much more than just the skill that you have, that you need to know and understand in order to be successful post-graduation. I think internships are a wonderful kind of like dipping your toe into what that really is. But maybe there should be a class, and I'm really happy you brought that up, Randy, and that Professor Morgan, you're talking about this idea of even framing something like this. I think that it should be hits entire like concentration within maybe a combination of business and communication, where entrepreneurship in the kind of creative space, especially given the kind of gig economy boom that we've seen, that there's an understanding of how to do that right, and that you're not just kind of falling your way through.
Honestly, just having like maybe not a full class dedicated to it, but like taxes and full-time freelance work was very stressful. And I think if there was some type of class, or if that's in this class that you mentioned, having that be kind of a major topic of the class would be very beneficial, because I know I felt like there was like a 10-ton weight on my back when I'm trying to figure out for the first time how to do taxes as a freelancer. It was a lot. And I mean, I did rely on a lot of friends who had been freelancing to kind of navigate that world.
Yeah, we spend time on taxes, both for not-for-profit and individual freelance work, but also just personal deductions, as well as separating out business deductions and getting 501c3s up, and if you're a not-for-profit, and all those aspects I think are really important. And geographical perspectives, having students look at 2 different locations that they want to live and find out what the costs are, what are opportunities for work, and things of that nature. So we do have that in there. And but I have been thinking more about adding a couple of components more in that heavy entrepreneurial freelance, because I'm hearing that from all of you, starting off with that and talking about how it can lead to. And also, as life changes, as you have children and things like that, you might want a 9-to-5 where you can get those health benefits and things of that nature paid for by working that 9-to-5 job. So thank you.
All right. Other questions? Yeah, Randy.
I've
and-
raised my hand literally. Did you see it?
I did, yeah. And actually, Cara Lee, you look like you were about to say something too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was actually going to say that I think it's like Jay Wolfman. I saw someone that he had his hand up for like this entire time. I just wanted to call. Yeah.
Yes.
I did. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So no, this presentation was fantastic, and it's clear that your roots in Fitchburg are strong, and that your sort of coming of age experience was foundational. If you could write a big check to pay it forward what would you like to see us do with that philanthropic gesture?
Hypothetical money, right?
Could be. What would your sort of dream be, that if you could endow something here back at Fitchburg State?
Yeah, I can answer that. It was probably about maybe 8 years ago. I brought a group of students in from inner city Boston. It's actually how I started my business. I got a grant to teach video to kids in Boston, and I brought them to Fitchburg State, and it inspired. They met with Charlie Roberts. They shot some stuff with him, and it inspired some of them to actually go into video. I would love to see. I would like to see more youth programs for students in the inner cities, to bring them out to Fitchburg and have maybe summer programs or things like that for students to learn the arts, the visual arts at Fitchburg. And I think it would work two ways. Could actually be future students, and it could be a great way for some of the current students to also learn to teach their art as well.
Yeah, the first thing that came to my idea, I think it's actually being worked on right now, because theater was such a big part of my life when I was at Fitchburg State. I know we were always going from theater to theater, and McKay was kind of where we would have the main stage shows, but even then it wasn't quite our space. It felt like, we were just upstairs, and we didn't actually have like a full space that we could just dedicate to classes and our performances. But I do believe that is being worked on, but that's just what came to my mind initially, is just being able to have a really robust theater department, because there's just so much that I got out of the department as it is now. So I would just love to even see that grow and expand.
Now that I'm thinking about what I just said about the whole like new track with entrepreneurship as a thing, I think that would be really, really cool. And having it be that whoever's in that track can combine, say they want to be a screenwriter, they can combine film and pro-com and like do, I don't know, having it not be so kind of stringent for folks who are, and I think I'm being selfish because I wasn't this very straight, like, oh, I'm a writer and that's it, pro-com. There are things that I wanted to do that I just kind of didn't have the time to do. I only had 4 years there. But if there was a way for people who come into the degree program already kind of having multiple interests, that there's a way for them to do that and still graduate in 4 years and not be there for 8, trying to kind of do 2 full programs.
Yeah, actually, can I say something as well? To Carolee's point, my name is Bria. I graduated in 2009 with Kelly Morgan and also Rob Carr. So it's kind of nice to see you guys there. Hi. That was actually a really huge point for me that was really difficult in Fitchburg, was I had 2 interests because I was a theater major and also a communications major. And it was very difficult to go from one side of the campus to the other side of the campus and then make all the classes, kind of put them together. So I ended up kind of creating my own major. And I think if that was something that was offered in the beginning, sort of like, you're your own entrepreneur, you're going to create a major for yourself with the things that you want, that would be part of your fictional business, which would be your major. I think that would be very helpful for people with multiple interests in a time when we are in a gig economy, when you do have to kind of have multiple hats on all of the time. I think that could be something very valuable at Fitchburg State, because we have such a tight network that we're all still in communication this many years later. I'm here because of Carolee and my cousin Angela. So, I think if we had something like that, it would teach them by doing how to be an entrepreneur early on, so they didn't make the sort of maybe mistakes or just the challenges that Carolee had or Brandy had. But thank you. This was great, everyone. Good to see everybody.
I also, if it's okay, Mary, I just wanted to chime in, because as we're talking about all of this, I'm thinking about what I'm doing at the Gotham and how we could maybe do, or if, you know, Fitchburg State wanted to do something in the lines of what we're doing. And so I'm an alum from 2012. Hello. And I've designed a film and media career development program that takes place in the summer. And it's an 8-week program. And each week we introduce a new part of the industry. So we get into entrepreneurship, marketing and PR, distribution and sales, festival programming, you know, film development and production, post-production. And each week they have a technical workshop that I teach, a master class with an executive director or an executive level person, a lunch and learn with a filmmaker or creative. And at the same time, they're all working on independent projects. So the students are working on anything from documentary out treatments, scripts. Some of my students are nonprofit you know, organizers, so they're creating press kits and press releases, and it's a really great space for the comm students and students from outside of comm too, to really try and test out what is available to them through the entertainment industry. So just wanted to mention that, and I think there is some really great opportunities within Fitchburg State to design something very similar. But anyways, and thank you all. It's so great to see everyone.
I think we should have like a, you know, talking about something you would donate, you know, as like a namesake at the college would be something like, you know, our roots run deep, even though we're 20 years out of school or 10 years out of school or 50 years out of school. I think something like that is important to mention. When you go to Fitchburg State, you know, I think a lot of people are thinking, well, it's not a brand name school, blah, blah, blah. But like, the experience that you have there with the professors and just with like people in the community and then your, you know, your fellow students, it's like lifelong. It's a lifelong experience, and it's like a gift that keeps on giving. And I think that's like the best kept secret at Fitchburg State, and I don't think it should be a secret. I think it's something that we should definitely promote much more, that it's like this added benefit that you won't see right away, but as time goes on, you'll notice it.
Yeah, I tell all of my students that I found my job at IFB because of Mary Baker, and my job at Anthology Film Archives because of Bob, you know, and we're all still in contact. And I, you know, the relationships I have with my professors are lifelong. And I'm so appreciative of them all the time. Hi, Zach. Zach, I'm sorry. And Rob, also, hi, Rob. I took a message design class with you and I made a comic book. I don't know if you remember that, but that was amazing. I loved that class so much.
I totally remember that. That was so much fun.
Yeah, that was so much fun. But anyhow, I loved my experience at Fitchburg State. So thank you all.
Yeah, priceless.
Do you just want to come back? There was a question in the chat about how hard was it to enter the industry immediately after graduating? So maybe you guys could talk a little bit about that. And also, you know, what was your experience, but what advice would you give to students that are graduating or will be graduating at some point in the next year?
Okay, I'm gonna go because I think this is my first time ever being able to say this with my professors here. So when I was at Fitchburg State, you know, I was a good student. And so I had this kind of false sense of security in my head of like, of course I'm gonna graduate and get a great job, of course. Like the world's my oyster. It's just gonna, like everything's gonna open up and I'm gonna just do amazing, amazing things right out the gate. Not thinking about the fact that it was a recession. And I think that reality hit fairly quickly after I graduated. Had a really awesome internship experience at a small communication coaching company. Try to say that 15 times fast. But I could not find a job in public relations to saved my life when I first got out. It was very, very difficult. And I had 3 internships. So it wasn't like I was kind of, just wishing my life. Like it was very, very difficult. And the one thing that I would say that saved me in the beginning was that I was open. Being open to doing things that might seem at first like it's out of what you really want to do. I'm sorry. The reality is the way that the world's set up, there's a possibility that you won't get your dream job right when you graduate from college. Actually, it's a probability in some cases, right? And it doesn't mean that it won't ever happen. I think Angela, your story proves, is proof positive to that. And for me, it took 10 years to come back around to the same thing because I always side kind of gig situation throughout taking the detours. I was still doing the work. So that's kind of my biggest thing is one, I don't have don't set yourself up for just mental disappointment. The world is interesting, and you might end up in a really great situation. Kudos to you, and you might not. And I wish someone had been a bit more blunt and honest with me about that, because I would have approached it maybe a little bit different. So if you're on this call and you're a student, I know that what I'm saying either is going to go over your head or it's going to scare the crap out of you. I'm hoping it's the latter, where you realize that, college is a bubble, and soon that bubble is going to, how do I say this without being mean? It's going to burst, right? You're going to graduate. It's going to be a new world. It's an awesome world, but it's not like college. And you have to be flexible enough to kind of move with it as you're going through, even if you do find the job that you really like. Things are what they are, right? They change, and you have to kind of grow through that. My experience is not like, maybe even others on the panel where you've kind of worked in your industry and that's been it. I've veered off dramatically. And I still came back and found my way into the industry. So it's not impossible, but I guess, and I'm saying a lot because it's something that I've been wanting to say for over a decade. It is okay if you don't end up where you thought you would immediately. Cool.
Amen, Carolee.
That's great.
Yeah, I have to agree with that wholeheartedly, because the thing that came into my mind was just that, like Carolee mentioned, my path, I had this wonderful internship where I was doing publicity and I was doing marketing, and when you graduate, you're just looking for a job, and I had my aspirations high and I was reaching out to places in Boston, but the reality is that you may not go to that first position that you kind of set for yourself in your mind. And that's okay, as long as you're keeping the same work ethic that you would have had if you had gotten that job. And exactly. I just can't stress that enough, because I think that if you get the position that you don't think you're right for, and then you're kind of just like honing it in, or if you're not practicing what you are passionate about somewhere elsewhere in your life, I would get out of work at 6 p.m. and drive to Quincy Community College just so I could be around other artists, and just so I could stage manage, or just be practicing whatever I could to be close to my craft. And that was huge for me. Since Carolee did offer that advice, the one thing I wanted to add is, I think there was a sense that I had when I graduated that I kind of was just thinking about, like, even if it was Boston, I was still thinking very local to the area. I wasn't thinking that, anything would pan out for me if I just decided to shoot for the moon and move to New York City. And I was really, I was selling myself short, and I wasn't understanding that I could go and reach whatever I wanted to. So my advice would be that if you have this inkling in your head and it's to go out to LA or go out to Chicago or go to New York, definitely look into it. Don't think it's this far off dream, because there are a lot of different ways that you can make things work. For me personally, it was grad school, but I met so many people in New York that told me what their version of grad school was. And it didn't involve them going to class, but it involved them learning a lot along the way based on their experiences and the organizations that they worked at. So that would be my advice. But yeah, good luck to everybody out there. I know it's the job market is a little crazy right now, but just honestly keep that work ethic and you'll land something, and keep your passion alive.
The advice I'd give to people looking to move into like the jobs they want is to have plans, have backup plans, and plan for those backup plans to not go through, because it's very real that they won't, and you definitely want to have like roadmaps on how to deal with that, and just be flexible. Like Carolee said, you can take other jobs while you look for your main job. It's not settling for less, it's stepping stones. It's the path to get there, and that's super important, and that's sometimes how it has to be, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm gonna give similar advice just to keep it going. I would say that, if there's a will, there's absolutely a way to get into where you want to be. But you know what? It might not be that journey that you want. I always thought I was going to work in children's TV, but who knew that I'd become an industry leader in real estate video marketing? Who know? Who knew? But that's just where I'm at. And I'll be honest with you, it doesn't mean I love it, but I really like what I'm going to leave to this world. And the other piece I would say is know that you're special, and know that you all have a special talent. I would be honest, I was bad at math. Who knew, in Fitchburg State? And I quickly learned how I could use video to actually graduate college. I bartered with the professor and got him to let me shoot all of his online videos, because that was a thing back then. Thanks, Jeff, for teaching us how to make videos online, because that wasn't a thing back then.
Absolutely.
And that's how I got out of Fitchburg State. I told him I'd create a whole online course for him, and he passed us, because I couldn't pass whatever it was, functions, whatever. And that's how I got out of college. And then right away, I actually didn't work in video. I worked in higher education. And I got hired at that first college because I knew video. And then after that, I got my first job in video out of 1,000 applications, because some guy from Fitchburg class of 1987 saw that I went to Fitchburg and hired me just because I went to Fitchburg. And that was in real estate. And here I am today working with one of the top real estate professionals in the world. You just really you never know. And the whole time I was at Fitchburg, children's television. And it's not even close to where I'm at right now. And so just embrace it and be thankful for it and have fun with it.
I'd like to add a little bit more. Work through imposter syndrome, because it's very real and it's very demoralizing, and it's something that needs to be worked through to go down any path.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna bring up. Even just not having been on a photo shoot in over a year and a half, mostly because of the pandemic, and I'm the lead photographer, not like a digital tech or a second shooter at a photo shoot. It was a lot of anxiety just diving back into it, and oh, what if this doesn't go the way you want it to go? And I'm also photographing 2-year-olds, so they're going to be temper tantrums, and kids are not going to want to be photographed. So just remember that you're in this position for a reason. And right out of college, I was working 3 part-time jobs, and thankfully 8 months after graduation, I did get my first job in photo. It's for me, I've always worked in photography. So I just really focus on trying to stay within my track, and really just, yeah, it's difficult. Graduating college is difficult. It's scary. And like everyone else said, like the world is just a much different place than college is. So just brace yourselves for that and realize, like Carolee said, you're probably not gonna get your end all be all job right out of school. It's probably something that you'll probably really need to work towards.
Can I just add one more thing? I don't always share this with audiences, but you know, for college students, this will wrap up a lot of what we've been saying. You got to prepare for the unexpected as you go into your career. You know, my one of my ultimate goals was to own a video production company. When I started my company, 2 weeks after I started it, I got diagnosed with an eye disease. So I'm actually visually impaired, believe it or not. I'm running a video company visually impaired. You can't plan for that. And all you can do is take all the experiences that you've had before that and use it to your advantage. And so, really, I know you're scared right now, but like I said before, embrace every moment that you have and be grateful for every moment that you have. And you absolutely will make it if you can do that.
You also might just not end up in the field at all. I want to put that out there. It's a possibility. Like and that is totally okay. For folks who are multi-interest people, it just might be that way. And that's like, it is okay. If you needed to hear someone say it's okay, I'm telling you, it's okay.
I think this is like the most important conversation for like current college grads and ones that recently graduated, because when the pandemic hit, I kept thinking to myself, man, I need to grab a college student and just be like, hey, I'm a graduate of the class of 2009. I graduated into the Great Recession. And literally the speaker for our graduation said, good luck, everybody. He literally said, I hope you don't have a lot of school debt, but good luck. And we were just like, oh, yay, class of 2009. And it was a roller coaster. Like Carolee said, it's just been all kinds of crazy pivots and turns. But I just feel like Fitchburg State really gave us like the wherewithal, or like the creativity and the network to be able to pivot and come out of all that stuff, not unscathed, but like pretty, strong enough to keep going. So I feel like the college kids now like really should understand that it will be challenging on the other side, but if they are able to take as much as they can at Fitchburg State and to like really create those relationships with the professors and each other, like it will be okay. You will have like a support on the other side, even if you don't think you will right now. You really do, and it's quite amazing.
Okay, so it's a little bit past 5:30, so I want to be mindful of the time, but there was one last question that did pop up in the chat, and it's kind of similar to what we've been talking about, but I'll just ask this in case anyone, our alums, have any final thoughts that they want to add. But the question is, so this is from Riley Hogan. It's a bit of a cliche, but something I think is worth knowing is if you could tell your younger self something, what would it be? So just final thoughts. What would you tell your younger self?
Honestly, to just relax, like just like take it down a couple of notches. Like you've gone to school for the majority of your life. You've been in college for the last 4 years. What the next steps are going to be a bit scary, and it's obviously something completely new for you and something you've never done, and just coming to terms with that and accepting that that's just how it is, I think would have done a world of wonders for me to just like not try and be so like high strung or just worried about what's going to happen next. Just to kind of just roll with the punches and just do the best you can. I mean, you're graduating, and it's a really big accomplishment. You should be really proud.
I would tell my younger self that you will do great things. You will continue to do great things for people who need them to be great, is all I would say to my younger self.
I would tell my younger self the answers to my calculus test in high school. But I would also tell my younger self where I was going to be, and that I would get super excited and probably even further if I knew it was possible to end up where I am now.
I would tell myself that while you may feel like you're alone in your experiences sometimes, you're really not. And there's so many people that have been graduates looking for work or have been in grad school struggling, and just to reach out to those people more and to talk about your experiences, because I think, as this panel is showing, this is even therapeutic for some people to just really get it all out there and have some honest talk. So that's what I would say.
I would say, I'm sorry to get emo on you guys. I think 22-year-old Carolee was really naive. And she also was very, very determined and self-assured. And I think years after, like, that got beaten out in a lot of ways, and I've built that back up. Took me a while. So I would say to her, I'm proud of you. And it's okay to be yourself. It's okay. You are enough the way that you are. It is okay that you don't know what the heck you want to do. Everyone that you think has everything already figured out, newsflash, they don't. And the same people who seem like they are totally on track, in 10 years, they'll be going through a midlife crisis while you're, hitting your stride. So, right, Randy. And I'm not trying to be me. I'm stating facts. I think at the time, I just had so many different interests. I was starting to do graphic design. I was in PR. I want to do music PR. I wanted to do all these different things and just didn't know and wasn't finding my footing. And I think, similar to you, Elise, breathing a little bit, like not freaking out. I probably wouldn't have made some of the decisions that I made out of fear, that kind of led me down a path that took a while to come back to that kind of fearless wonder that I had at 22. So I would say the big ones would just be, you're enough, you're good, like, you're not weird, keep going.
Well, thank you all so much. This has been just an incredible conversation. I appreciate, your honesty and all of the advice that you've shared with our students. So thank you all for being here. And I hope you get the opportunity to check out some of the other work at Visions. And for all of our alums that were able to join, please stay in touch. We'd love to hear about what you're doing, and love to kind of like bring you back into the comm media family. It's great to see everybody. So thank you, everyone, and have a great night.
Thank you so much. That was awesome. It was really great to hear from all of you.
Really awesome. Thanks.
That was
Thanks,
great.
guys. Have a great night.
Fantastic. Wonderful all.
Peace.